Hey, this is Dan Harris, and welcome to the Iron Podcast. On today's episode, we have a conversation with Adam Parnes. Adam, they call him the airplane whisperer. We talk about everything aircraft maintenance, what you should look at when you're buying an airplane, what you should ask your aircraft management company when it comes to maintenance. I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. All right, Adam, I think we'll start off with, because you're, a maintenance expert, what's the most reliable airplane that you've ever worked on?
And it's funny, and I think I saw on one of your podcasts, you're a
G550
you're
guy.
a self-proclaimed Gulfstream guy.
I'm a G550 guy.
G550 guy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you my license plate on my car.
Mm-hmm.
G5s are better. Literally, that's my license plate.
You think, oh man, the things about the G5 that I have a hard time with, especially in the charter marketplace, is
The aft galley.
well, no. I'm just saying like how the market fit for the G5. Here's my problem with it. That if the people that can afford to fly internationally on a G5 or internationally privately, they quite often want newer airplanes. So I think the G5 has a tough market fit where you are probably competing a lot more on domestic flights, and you're competing against older G4s. So it's like the market fit for that G5, and it's more expensive to operate than like what's the cost between a 5 and a 550 to operate?
It's dollars. It's
Yeah.
not thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It's
Now, not to
hundreds.
poo-poo your, as I ask you what's your most reliable airplane, I'm shitting on it.
I mean, look, the Global has become a much bigger workhorse,
Mm-hmm.
as the G4 was.
Yep.
The Bombardier market has definitely
Mm-hmm.
stepped up its game. When you see your competition in front of you,
Yeah.
it makes you do things differently.
Yeah.
Look, every aircraft that's delivered new has its challenges.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb is don't get a serial number less than 99.
Well, like the 650 had door issues, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember the door issues, obviously.
Gulfstream had a team, they called it the Tiger Team,
Mm-hmm.
and they went around the planet fixing doors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's good. That's a good saying. Don't buy before 99. But like from a reliability standpoint, when you look at airplanes or when you're working on airplanes, historically, what have you found? Is it that G5 has just been a reliable workhorse?
When we would get and I've always worked in, coming up into Gulfstream, delivering G5s, and then coming into the charter maintenance world, was eye-opening. And it's something that I had no idea was happening.
Yep.
People are renting an airplane. In Gulfstream, I worked in Savannah at the factory. So when you come into the parking lot, they had, because it's a big NASCAR town, obviously. So they would have flags in the parking lot of what was going into completion, what was sold, and what was completed.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So they had a checkered flag, blue flags and red flags. And you'd walk into the parking lot, and the gate guard is putting up the flags for the day.
That's pretty cool.
So every single day there was 3 or 4 checkered flags up there. So as a Gulfstreamer, you're looking and you'll go, man, we just keep selling airplanes.
Well, that's like, you like success, celebrate that
Right.
success. That's a pretty cool.
It was actually, it was motivating.
Yeah.
And you're working in service. So I was working in the service center to start, and I was there when the corporate G2 was the test bed for all the other Gulfstreams for RVSM.
Wow.
So we would fly the whole pattern to certify the airplanes.
Wow.
So when I got the Gulfstream in late '97, it was exciting. It was great.
Yeah.
And again, those checkered flags, you're like, so you sit there and go, wait, these people are buying these airplanes and now you're letting people just rent them like a Hertz rent-a-car? I don't understand this. But when I got out here, I understood it. And then I looked at the maintenance department of it. I'm like, oh, it's not just about maintenance. There's a lot more pieces to this.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I actually had to learn. Again, as a maintenance guy, as an A&P, you just want to fix airplanes.
Yeah.
Today, and this is fact statement, today, working on an airplane is literally my therapy. I don't have the phone. I don't have 50 emails going off. I'm just on the airplane. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go and fix this.
Just kind of working through. Once you break us down your background, maybe how you got started in aviation, how you got into fixing airplanes, bring us from the beginning.
U.S. Army, went in as an avionics technician, a bench tech, on all helicopters.
Okay.
Started in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Then that brought me to all kinds of wonderful shitholes in the world that I was invited to.
Where's the worst place you've ever worked? Where's the worst place you've ever fixed a helicopter?
Actually, it was just the worst situation. I felt like I was on top of the world. Fort Wainwright, Alaska in December.
Wow.
It was, 3 million degrees below zero.
Yeah, jeez.
It took 4 of us to change out something because it was just too cold.
Yeah.
They had to drive a snowblower to the helicopter.
Really?
So we can walk in this path. It was crazy. But so the Army, and then I did a lot of special missions in the Army, and then I got, again, I'm a lucky individual. Most people know me as just a straight up knucklehead, you know, and I've just become very attuned to my environment.
Yep.
So you have to learn stuff. So I was working with special operations, special forces,
just keeping birds in the air.
and other stuff.
Yep.
Just you're at that point you belong to the Army.
Yep.
So whatever's the flavor of the moment.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about communication, and it wasn't, everybody was going home. That's the difference. So that's why today, when I look out at the ramp and I see all the airplanes going out, I'm like, I don't have any worries.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it's maintained well.
Yeah.
I know the flight crew is good. Like I said in my comment on LinkedIn, we make it complex.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that if you just communicate, throttle back,
Yep.
and just
Operate the airplane.
and just think about what you're good at.
Yep.
So, military dropped me off in many, many different places. Then I went to Savannah, Georgia, got out there, went to work for Gulfstream. I was actually fortunate to get a job in the service center. So I was working on G2s, G3s. I was working on all the in-service stuff.
Yep.
And at that time, those flags that I was talking about, they had to meet a deadline. They had to meet. And if they didn't...
So airplane in, they're coming in for either normal service or, a check or something like that.
These are all airplanes that have been operated. So a lot of G4s, a lot of G3s, stuff like that, modifications.
Yep.
And we were just starting to see the first 150 hours of G5s.
Yep. Okay.
So that was what was really coming in. And
so when you got a new airplane like that, there's probably all brand new problems, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was
You've never seen before. It's a
even
brand
the
new airplane.
manuals.
Yep.
Using the manuals, they were better than the older manuals, but they were based off of older things.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you sit there and you read it and go, well, that button isn't even here.
That was a G3 button. Now I'm trying to find this G5 button, right?
Right.
Interesting.
So it was just, so the service center guys, and we called them red lines. We would go upstairs to the engineers and go, hey, this works like this. And they would just red line it and change it.
Update the manual.
Yeah. So it was really pretty remarkable that, and the techs on the floor, including myself, all of us were trained. We knew what we were embarking on. We knew the deal. So if you didn't know what to do, go find an older guy, ask how to do it. He would put it into G3, G4 language. The younger guys would then decipher it into G5 language, and then we would work it together. Just work the problem. Work the problem. So it was pretty exciting on the delivery side and the G5, coming out. It wasn't like the 650, which is a clean sheet design, but it was just different. It was, different Honeywell problems, different fuel problems, just different.
Yeah, your avionics problems are different than your engine problems are different than.
And you got to think, different avionics suite completely, different engines completely, different wing completely.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of new things in an older design. So again, back to your environment. These are in-service airplanes, and they just have 150 hours on them. Some dude just bought this, and he's like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
So deadlines.
Even with pilots, right? When you've got a new airplane coming out, they need to learn how to operate these airplanes and what they can do, what they can't do, things like that as well, right? So there's definitely a learning curve for not only pilots but also mechanics. But also what you mentioned, buying new airplanes, about what number 99? Don't buy before 99 when you're looking at new airplanes.
I'm not going to say that officially because I have a feeling that some manufacturer
We can always take things out.
hook me up for that.
We can always take things out. But one question that I always have and I struggle with is maintenance projections when someone's looking at buying an airplane. What's the current process of how people are building maintenance projections, and why can't anyone get to really accurate numbers?
I struggle with that because it shouldn't be very difficult.
Right? Because theoretically you think, all right, here's serial number airplane, right? And we've already seen this airplane, let's call it this G5, 10 or 15 serial numbers before this G5. It has a similar number of hours. Theoretically, it should follow that pattern of what the airplanes before it on normal times have done, right? Why is that not the case? Or are people just don't know how to accurately pull that data? Or maybe that data is just not out there.
The data's there. It can be pulled accurately. Every airplane has a book to follow. Every book follows a tracking system.
Yep.
You've heard CAMP, CMP, Flight Docs, which is now Varion, Traxall. These are all proven methods and accepted methods of tracking maintenance schedule.
Yeah.
As you're aware, I've done a lot of transactions. Former employer, we figured out that it was easier to buy airplanes than go manage them.
Yeah.
Which there's a truth to that as well.
Definitely some advantages to owning the airplane versus managing, for sure.
But the thing that I came across so often was these Part 91 airplanes that never saw charter before. They were doing maintenance every month around the boss's schedule. So if he had his big trip in August, they would just go pull all kinds of maintenance up to July.
Making sure
that everything was fine. And then what that does, it takes the cycle, times, hours, cycles, out of the equation. So I would always try to get the seller to agree to doing a full 12, 24, possibly even 48 month. And then if there was something else behind it that was bigger, maybe it was on our dime to do at the same time, go hard on the deal, and then you have an airplane that is ready for high utilization.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of different things.
Is that a tough transition to take a lower utilization airplane, move it into higher utilization?
Well, I say two things to owners on transactions. I'm like, today is the greatest moment. You just bought a Gulfstream. You should have no other feeling in the world except probably when you had your first kid.
Yeah.
But for the next 6 months, that Gulfstream is going to tell you who's the boss. And it's so strange. As soon as the registration card changes, something breaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a coincidence guy, but there's something to that.
And is just are things not being caught on the
No,
pre-buy, or
because
like
and that's the biggest question. How come this wasn't caught in the pre-buy?
right? That's your first question, right? After the first thing breaks, right?
Because they went out, they ran it, they did this, they did the other thing, and everything was fine.
It had this much life left in it, and then it still had life when you ran that pre-flight check, and then boom.
And even the maintenance, when you're doing a pre-buy, what you really want to find is corrosion. You want to find damage.
Yeah.
You want to find great records. If you have records, that are bilingual, you want to make sure that the next step, they're all uniform.
Yeah.
Put them however you want to put them. Every maintenance guy has his own method for logbooks, but just make them uniform.
And why aren't these things digital?
I am very digital. The last place I was at, I wrote the process, wrote the training process, the training program, and I said, get the app. Here's how you use the app. If everything is green, go. If everything is yellow, still go.
Yeah.
If everything is orange, still go.
Yep.
If it's red, call me because there's either a mistake
Yep.
or we screwed up.
Yeah.
It's only one or the other.
Yeah, and yellow and orange probably means, hey, there's an item that's going to be doing this airplane shortly, right? Yeah.
And then orange is it's in the window.
Yeah.
It's overdue. You got your grace.
Yeah.
I don't tell pilots about grace because then they'll overstep their bounds.
Well, yeah.
Keeping people safe is the first
they're
thing.
supposed to be nervous, right?
Right.
As they should be.
And when I tell a pilot, I just gave you access to camp. You really can screw this up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny to watch their face.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the pilot in command is the one that determines airworthiness. So a piece of paper that I sign, they look at it or not look at it.
Yeah.
And you find lately, more often than not, pilots aren't looking at everything.
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot to do.
They would probably rather see the color, right?
They
want to see green.
hit the button,
Yeah.
hit the tail number, and everything is good.
Yeah.
And it's easier.
Yeah.
And you can write up the squawk
Yeah.
inside, and everything is captured. So
Are you seeing less pilots that are, earlier in my career, I feel like I saw more pilots that had that maintenance experience. And now I don't know if I'm seeing less, or maybe because I had pilots that could fix a squawk, that knew what to do, like got in the back of an airplane to keep these airplanes going. Now I'm seeing less and less where it's just like, let me pick up the
I
phone.
will not speak on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but I mean, you've got pilots that pick up the phone and go, it's broken.
Yeah.
I'm going to the hotel.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I just looked at this. I looked at that.
Is it an indicator? Is it a real problem? Can we MEL it?
Right.
Yeah.
It's also, and again, boss man, Part 91, you are going to make that flight.
Yeah.
Unless there is absolutely no way to make it.
Yeah.
So the pilots, I think differently in that.
Yeah.
On a super large fleet of 135 airplanes, the pilot can go one way or another.
Send another airplane.
They can go one way or another.
Yeah.
It depends on them overall.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things with like either NetJets or any time that pilots are in a negotiation period. I definitely think that's probably a tactic that they can technically employ of, hey, I'm going to write this up, or even not even maintenance write-ups, also when they're fatigue. It's like all of a sudden we're in a contract negotiation, we're seeing more fatigue write-ups.
I remember those conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man.
But back to the budgets, like what is it about?
Maintainers do that too, man.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I've been working for 10 hours and I've been on call for this many hours, and it's not, see, that's there's two towers. There's the pilot tower and there's the maintenance tower.
No, and everyone's talking about the pilot tower. And not a lot of people are talking about the maintenance
up
guys.
here.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're hearing the rumblings, all these contracts that got signed, they're starting to change some of that stuff. But the maintenance tower has always been paid to here.
Yeah.
And look, a junior mechanic is a junior mechanic. If you want to come in and make it $50 an hour, prove yourself to make $50 an hour. If you're a seasoned vet, be a seasoned vet.
Yeah.
It's not just about the $50 an hour. Teach the other guy.
Yeah.
Like I was saying back in Savannah, the old guys, man, they would keep so much information to chest that you would literally have to either pull it out of them or just watch over their shoulder and be willing to learn it. So back to environment.
Yeah.
If you don't know your environment, you'll never improve yourself.
Yeah. You know, it kind of brings me to my next question of when you're owning an airplane and you're looking at budgets and you're trying to figure out, all right, how's the best way to operate this airplane? And you look at someone that manages an airplane with a, call it a group of mechanics is probably a better word for it, or hiring a specific, maintenance supervisor or maintenance manager. What do you think of the two different approaches? I've been told, and I don't know if this as a fact, but the money you invest in a maintenance manager pays dividends because your airplane's down less. Maybe you're throwing less parts at issues. You're catching things before they have a bigger issue. What do you think is the best way to operate an airplane if you're an airplane owner from a budget standpoint, hiring a maintenance manager versus using, the maintenance pool?
It can go either way. Again, maintenance manager is going to have ownership.
Yep.
So every single day, they're gonna either be at the airplane or they're gonna be thinking about the airplane or they're gonna be working an issue that's behind the airplane or they're
there for departure, they're there for arrival.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is absolutely a benefit, but that benefit is not a cheap benefit. Now using like an MRO as your dedicated MRO, not a bad situation. Yeah. But you got markup on parts. You're at their you're kind of at their mercy. Yeah. Because if they don't have loading,
how available they are, how busy they are,
and everything is going on, and they can't make an exception for you that day, then what do you do? Yeah. I mean, I've been, again, lucky. I'm just a lucky individual. I've not had to deal with that often. I'm respectful. I'm very clear what I need. Yep. I'm part of it. So if I need to help, I'll help. Yep. So in the overall pooled maintenance or MRO maintenance, I've been very lucky. Then, when I came here from Gulfstream, from DC to LA, I worked for a company called the Air Group. And great place to work, great people, but it had their own 145 maintenance department.
And a 145 is technically
an MRO.
Its own business, maintenance business, right?
But for the Air Group at that time, they did not, at no time, they didn't take in transient maintenance.
Interesting, okay.
They only worked on the fleet. Okay. And so you had 18 directors of maintenance. Yep. And I've found something in the charter world on the maintenance side. When you give a pool of mechanics 1, 2, or 3 airplanes to look at, they're only looking at those 1, 2, or 3 airplanes. Yep. So either A, that person is on call, on duty all the time, and when they go on vacation or if something happens, somebody sits there and goes, well, what's going on? Yeah. Because it's inevitable that somebody goes, what's going on? Yep. And then it goes back to communication. Yep. If the communication isn't there, then nobody knows what's going on. Then that actually causes a breakdown within the department. Yeah. For pooled pilots, it's different. They can get into the airplane because they know the airplane. It's returned to service. It's released, and they can fly it because they know how to. On a maintenance side,
they can step into any G4 and pretty much hit the same buttons and get this airplane going.
And if it's not their G4, they're like, well, why does it do this? Well, because
it'll have little kind of
little nuances.
Yeah, yeah.
But a maintenance manager that's looking at 3 or 4 airplanes. Yeah. That's a lot of work. Yeah. That's a lot of work. So I've come into places and I've I've kiboshed that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll all work on all the airplanes, and you'll
That way, that communication.
You'll communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
You can actually
also-
take a vacation, or someone else can actually.
You'll be surprised. It also builds a working culture. Oh, I do trust his work.
Yeah.
Or I didn't think that he was capable, but he helped me out. And
Interesting.
and that goes back to being military.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with special operations units. You stuck it in and communicated.
Yeah.
You know, from moving from one step to the next. And I was in odd places. And you needed to think before you stuck your head up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it promotes a working culture.
Yeah.
And I think, and going back to the maintenance manager or pooled, you charge a maintenance control fee to a 135 for $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
You pay $25,000 a year for quality technical advisement.
Yep.
Or you pay $145,000 a year
Yeah.
for quality technical advisement.
Yep.
So now the choice is yours.
Yeah.
It literally can go either way.
Yeah. It probably just comes down to the people, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, building a team is not easy.
It's probably tough, especially. I mean, I think we talked about the pillars of pilots and maintenance. It's probably getting a lot harder finding good maintenance talent.
Well, there is, that I was just talking to somebody, a friend of mine. He has a repair station, and he said he stopped really taking in outside work, and he's focusing on his core customers.
Yep.
His core customers are always keeping the floor loaded.
Yep.
He's got 4 technicians, and they're always on time.
Yeah.
Unless there's
Yeah.
a parts problem
Yeah.
or an engineering problem, those things change the game right
Yeah.
away. But he's finding that it's much better to deal with a core group of customers, a core group of A&Ps.
Then hiring, training, trying to grow, losing somebody. Not now you've lost somebody. You've taken on the extra business because you wanted to grow. Now you're not hitting your numbers that you wanted to.
And there still is
Yeah.
a maintainer shortage out there.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking for that G650, G700.
Yeah.
Look, you'd be crazy. I am crazy because I'm not looking for it.
Yep.
I love what I do. Man, I said it in the military. I said it to people that work for me. And if you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and just go, I can't do this anymore, then leave.
Yeah.
Because you're no value to yourself. You're no value to your employer. And we actually have a thing in our pocket that says you're going to do the right thing. And when you're not happy with that, that's...
How do people get to the point where, they're not doing the right thing? And I've seen some, some lawsuits. I've seen some FAA write-ups where people are, saying they installed a part, they didn't install a part. Like how does that happen? How are you okay with, taking the money and then potentially putting out a product that's maybe unsafe?
That goes back to ethic.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can't hire by ethic.
Yeah.
And you can't train ethic.
Yeah.
So in a conversation that I sit down with somebody, and when I would have, when I was building the team over at that large fleet, I would sit in on the interviews. The chief inspector would sit on the interviews, and I'd bring one of the maintenance controllers or a mechanic to sit on the interview. And they were like, those you find them on Google. What are the best 15 questions to ask for an interview?
For sure.
And I would let them just do it. What what do you see yourself doing in 5 years?
Exactly.
That's like the best one,
Yeah.
Or what's a conflict that you had, and what did you do to solve
The best
it?
part about that is you Googled that question to ask. The other guy Googled the question to answer. Yeah.
And I sit there and I go, what'd you do last weekend?
Yeah.
I don't care about those 15 questions.
Yeah.
Because you've got to ask somebody who they are.
Yeah.
And do you go out a lot with your wife, your kids? Yeah, we did this. Oh, you
Yeah.
went to the horse track. Awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
So I would sit there and I would listen to those, and I would smile and I'd nod because they're just ridiculous questions from 1974, and they haven't changed.
Yeah.
There's been more.
Yeah.
And now I think you add a lot of questions about social media.
Yeah, of
What's
course.
the worst thing that I'll find on social media about you? You know.
Yeah, you should have probably already found everybody, and I've had a couple where I found some interesting stuff on social media.
I kind of want to make my own ghost account so I can just go crazy on social
yeah,
media,
you should.
but I'm too adult not to.
I know, and it's tough. And even now, when we're pushing more of these clips and things on social media, it's a drain too, and like the value from it's very little. But when you're looking at maintenance billing, where are you seeing the mistakes in aircraft billing, aircraft monthly management statements? Because when you look at an aircraft monthly management statement, one, it's gigantic, right? Every single screw you screwed in, light bulb you screwed in, the time, I think it's maybe purposely done to be overwhelming, and that way it's harder to catch mistakes theoretically. Maybe it's not, but where are those? Where have you seen those mistakes? Where should airplane owners and advisors be looking at those mistakes? And can they even find them? Do they need, a third party, expert to come in and really help?
Third party expert would be easier.
Yeah.
Because maintenance invoicing is not written for the CEO, CFO,
Yep.
or even the executive assistant.
Yeah.
The executive assistant gets put in charge of the boss's airplane.
Yeah.
He or she has flown 4 times in their lives, and now they're managing money on a private jet.
Yeah.
So some of the things about maintenance is there is no good platform.
Mm-hmm.
There's no good software platform.
Mm-hmm.
There's platforms that will make it happen.
Yeah.
You've got several out there.
When the guys at MySky are trying to theoretically ingest all the data of here's all the G4s that we have, let's take all their bills in, and then let's try and compare them.
So it's funny you say that, because years ago I went to a couple of big box stores, and I said, how many times have you done this inspection? And they said, oh, hundreds. I'm like, no. I want to know exactly how many times you've done this. You have to have the data, and the data has to be supported by something.
Yeah.
So they came back to me and they said, we did 98 of these inspections.
Yeah.
I'm like, what was the over-under and what was the average?
Yeah.
What
would you budget for, and what did they actually come out to be?
So I did this I even did this with Gulfstream, and it worked out really well. Said, I want a flat rate in and out the door. Just fix it. If this is how much you say it's going to cost, first of all,
you can win if you do better, right?
And that's what I said to him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to ask for change back.
Yeah.
You said it's going to be this. Look, as a maintainer, as a director of maintenance or a maintenance manager, the shittiest conversation is, hey, boss, it's $220,000 to fix this part that you'll never see in your life.
Yeah.
It's fine to spend $13,000 on a chair that you're recovering.
Yeah.
But the machine that keeps the pressure going in the hull of the aircraft, you don't see that.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult conversation.
Yeah. And his initial question is always like, can we spend less, right? Is there anything else we can do?
And there's only 1 or 2 or 3 options.
Yeah.
Find it from an airplane that's being parted out as removed, buy it as repaired, buy it as overhauled.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
But
can you negotiate? Like, how much there's another question, right? How much can you negotiate or shop when it comes to?
It's funny you say that, because I know what you're saying. What's the room to negotiate on parts pricing?
Yeah. or labor or anything like that.
Any of that.
Yeah.
And this was, and again, I said I came to L.A. to work in a 135 maintenance shop as a foreman, and I didn't know what this was. And every time I would call an owner and say this is that, they would go, okay. And then when they get the bill, I'm just not going to pay it. And I'd go like, but why?
Yeah.
And I took my wife's car into Toyota, and I said, yeah, I'm just not going to pay that. And they were like, what? You approved it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I know.
Yeah.
It just needed to get done.
Yeah.
But 3 minutes later, they came back and they gave me like a 10% discount.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this works for real people too.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does.
That's the negotiation.
Yeah.
I would prefer to do it on the backside.
Yeah.
Just because of character.
Yeah.
But you can do it on the front side because of character. But you can do it on the backside.
How much shopping is going on?
There's a lot. You would be surprised.
But I feel like when you've got an airplane with a management company, they're not shopping, right? They want you to do all the maintenance, especially if they have the 145. They want you to do all the maintenance at their rates, right? They're not going out to the market and trying to shop.
No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. And that goes back to that post.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious about that post that you and I read.
Yeah.
It was obviously a negative.
Yeah.
On
the
maintenance.
post was about they've got a big maintenance event coming out and they shopping it, and then other people are underbidding themselves, right?
Right.
Theoretically, if someone underbids, can they come back and say, hey, it's more than it was?
100%.
So yeah, so what's that bid? That bid's worth anything,
nothing.
right? Yeah.
It's worth nothing.
Yeah.
So when you're out there shopping for a maintenance event, I'm going to give you the basic stuff.
Yep.
Are they capable of doing it?
Yep.
And it's not about the inspection. Are they capable of fixing what they inspected?
Yep.
That's really, do they have the equipment?
How would you know that?
There's a place in Van Nuys, Western Jet, now a Standard Aero company. I know if I brought an aircraft there for any Gulfstream maintenance, they can not only find it, they can fix it, and they'll have a plan for it.
Compared it to like maybe I've done some Falcon work with the guys at Thornton, which is another
great MRO.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, probably one of the best on the West Coast for Falcons.
Yeah.
But they actually...
But they would bid a Gulfstream job, obviously, right?
And they would.
Yeah.
And actually, I spoke to them about something that they were doing, and they were not able to correct the problem. And it had to go over to Western Jet. Yeah. Which, once they got there, they knew what they needed to do quickly. Yeah. And they informed the customer. Yeah. So it turned out right.
Yeah. But as long as you know that, hey, these guys are capable...
As long as they're capable, look, 135 companies, they should be vetting their maintenance providers very well. They should be, before the aircraft even gets there, the DOM says to the chief inspector, hey, we're going to go to XYZ Aviation and so-and-so address. Here they are. Here's the bid. Can you get them approved? And then they call up and go, this doesn't make sense. That chief inspector should call me and go, as the director of maintenance, they have 4 mechanics. None of them have been to any professional schools because they can't provide training. And they only have 1 guy that's going to return everything to service. That would be a flag.
Yep.
So if you take your airplane there for a large inspection, you kind of did it to yourself.
Yep.
I mean... There's a lot of great...
But they potentially gave you a lower bid, right, to win the business?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Or, there's places that just don't know what they don't know. And you can't fault them for that, too. If this inspection requires ultrasonic testing, there's things that go along with that. And if you think it's just do this, it's not do this. You've got to... And that's why I used, as a foreman on the floor, I got to the air group, and for the first 30 days, these guys couldn't stand me. I sat on a toolbox drinking coffee, sitting on the phone, and just watching. Because everyone was walking around, moving around, doing stuff. Yeah. And I ended the 30 days, I brought everyone to the office. I said, you know what? if all you guys took like 20 minutes before you started the task
Yep.
and got everything you needed to get and went to the airplane and had the vision to see what the end result was,
Yep.
you would be done in hours instead of days.
Yep.
And that's what I tried to instill in these guys. Then you also then give them the empowerment to make decisions.
Yeah.
So I don't have to come out. Well, the foreman has to make all decisions.
Yeah.
The first thing I tell everybody is, I'm an avionics guy.
Yeah.
You show me a crack in a wing, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yep.
I now I do.
Yeah.
But at the time, everything had to go to the foreman.
Yep.
And that foreman had to make all of the decisions. So they took all the empowerment away from the A&P mechanic. So you're like, well, let's make this better.
Yeah.
If this is bad, tell me this is bad.
Yeah.
Tell me why it's bad. Tell me how it's bad. Because you don't have to have the conversation with the guy that's stroking the check.
Yep.
I just want to be able to speak like I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's a great, this guy, Dan Martali, wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time, and he's got a 1-3-1 rule. It's kind of like what you're talking about. You've got one problem. I need you to bring me 3 solutions to that problem, and I need you to tell me what the one solution you think is the best fit. And quite often when someone does that, they more than 50% of the time don't even bring you the solution because they've already, instead of just relying on the foreman or someone else to solve the problem, they actually go and problem solve it themselves.
Yeah. It's empowerment.
Yeah.
And going back to the maintenance shortage and MROs and mistakes, I mean, look, mistakes are going to happen, either because of human factor or not understanding, lack of training.
Yep.
These are all things that can happen. At the end of the day, a maintainer does semi-dangerous stuff. And I tell this to people. We have a certificate in our pocket with a number on it in the middle of the country that relates right back to you.
Yep.
So if something happens, they're going to reach you.
Yep. Yeah, that part you installed was not, you did a mistake. It was the wrong part. You didn't follow the procedure. Yeah, they come right back to you. Not to the company,
That's
to that
exactly
one
right.
person. And then if they want to, they can theoretically remove that license, right?
Suspended, or if
Yeah.
it's something that's
Yeah.
habitual, or
Yeah.
if there's things like that. So we hold up AMPs.
Yeah.
We hold a high standard to what we do. We should.
Yeah.
So if someone puts something on that's below board, I'm going to say that person has probably been beaten to death
Yeah.
by an owner or a boss that just said, you better.
Yeah, get it done cheaper.
People getting paid fairly well, and you look at your house note, your car note, your Harley, your boat, your vacation home, and you go,
Yeah, you
and
got to get it done.
You have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Or you say, no.
Yeah. Have you been in situations like that where a guy said, hey, I don't want to pay this, and you said, well, there's nothing I can do, right?
That is the hardest, shittiest conversation. And you're like, well, it can't. I love this one. It flew in like that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But now
Very
I know
dangerously.
about it.
Yeah.
I know about it now.
Yeah.
It probably could work for another, I don't know how long.
Yeah.
But do you want to be on the airplane when it probably doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of education. Look, I think my job as a director of maintenance, understanding schedule, understanding the beans of it, understanding all the complexities of it, especially in a 135 or in a Part 91 world, because they're both dramatically different. And as I was saying to you earlier, you've had people on your podcast that I agree with at the same time as I disagree with, which is fine. That's what makes this a great.
Yeah.
First of all, that's what makes this a great world.
Yeah.
You and I can agree to disagree.
Yep.
But it's my job to educate an owner. You got this really cool thing. It's not going to be cheap, but I'm going to tell you why you need it. Or I'm going to say, hey, let's kick this down. Take care of it when it makes sense.
Yep.
Because it's not an airworthy thing. You need to do this. look, airworthy is airworthy.
Yeah.
You should never have that discussion.
Yeah.
And you should never be put into that discussion.
Yeah.
But, going back to the invoices, the platforms that we as maintainers use, they suck.
Yeah.
They're very difficult,
Surprisingly, a lot of the technology in the industry is not great.
Oh man.
It's crazy. I think the big problem is the market's not big enough, right? So there's not enough people that want to buy these pieces of technology in the space. So there's not a lot of, technological talent that's building these things for people.
Well, there was a whole, I went to Miami to a software show just for aviation. There had to be $1 billion of software platforms there. And I was like, wow. And one was more complex than the next. Like it would tell you, predictive maintenance. But all of these things go back to one thing: garbage in,
Guys
garbage
putting
out.
in the details,
That's
right?
exactly it.
Yeah.
So if
It probably goes back to the paper. People are used to
typo.
doing paper logs. Yeah.
A typo. So if you put a part number in and you transpose two numbers, that's no longer a typo. That's a wrong part number. Then it gets into the logbook, right? And then someone in a pre-buy, go to a pre-buy, and let's just say it's a landing gear post, which is going to cost you 30 grand, 40 grand. And the part number is wrong on the logbook. And you go out to the actual physical and you go, yep, these don't match. Then you go, well, that's a suspected unapproved part.
Yeah.
Now I'm taking you down a big rabbit hole.
Yeah. But in that initial, the guy installed this part, he put the part number wrong. He probably could have either charged that airplane owner a lot more or a lot less, right? How do you and how does someone catch those things?
Well, I mean, that's why I said I think these things are set up not to be for CFOs because that's like they're going to catch everything, and everything may not be catchable.
Yeah.
If you understand that.
Yeah, that someone that's actually has that maintenance knowledge, that have read aircraft statements before, can then catch that. I mean, I've when I've reviewed maintenance statements, I've even caught them on the charter side, and it's because we were operating an accounting system, and the charter system was different, and someone was reading one screen, typing on another screen, and they typed. I think they added an additional zero, and an owner got paid $10,000 more than they should have got paid. And then it happened the other way, where the owner got paid, almost $10,000 less. And as an airplane owner, you definitely want to catch the good ones and the bad ones. And I think, a lot of airplane owners aren't really reviewing these things. And I talked with Joe Park from BizJet CPA, and he had a good process of they just benchmark things as long as the things are pretty much benchmarked. But those benchmarks can be big. I mean, those can be tens of thousands of dollars of misses.
Right.
And there's probably, there's great advisors that, myself included, there's great advisors, not to pat myself on the back, but I will, that can catch those mistakes, and they happen a lot.
They do happen a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just maintenance. I think it's the entire industry.
For sure.
And I mean, look, does every pilot think about how much the fuel costs or how much just the ramp to drop and go?
Yep.
So you pay X dollars to drop and go.
Yep.
But if you go get fuel here for $1 or 60 cents less.
Yep. Where should you be tankering? What?
Right.
And I know, Fueler Links is doing some of that stuff, but a lot of people, it comes down to, their responsibilities. Some pilots just want to fly the airplane, and I think that's fine. But
I've worked with great aircraft cams.
Yep.
Aircraft managers.
Yep.
And they'll call me up and go, "Hey, Adam, how did you miss this?" I'm like, "Oh,
yeah,
you are right."
Yeah. Great job. Yeah.
But and it's because look, a DOM's looking at the time I was looking at 54 different things.
Yep.
Keeping them all in line, and then you got around the country or I had a fleet in Hong Kong and Tokyo.
Yep.
So I have a staff of 30 people, and the first thing, going back to getting rid of the compartmentalization, if everyone knows the expectation of the top branch,
Yep.
you have less mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is in this industry also, the guy that just gets it done, gets
Yeah.
it done, gets promoted, and then somebody starts to see that doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's real in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably a lot of other industries.
I would think
Yeah.
that there's other industries that have
Yeah.
it. I mean, I know what I would hate to be in medical billing.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be tough. Yeah. You think parts are tough. I mean, when I not love negotiating medical billing, but I definitely, we had our third baby and it came out and I always asked for the receipt. Hey, can you send me the receipt? And then immediately the bill is reduced because they have to go look at the receipt and then they see like some things are wrong. So, and actually we always do with catering and any additional charges, can I please see the receipt? And I would say 25% of the time there's an error in that receipt.
You just gave a life hack.
I know. Just ask for the receipt. That's all it is. 25% of the time, sometimes they'll catch it themselves. But, it's another thing with catering, which, I've been pretty outspoken about my disdain for catering. But asking for that receipt after the fact. When switching gears, when you're thinking of buying airplanes and pre-buying, what are some of the things? Let's just say you've got your eyes on an airplane, you want to go into a pre-buy, and let's just talk, say, Gulfstreams. So we're going into a G550 pre-buy. What are some of the things that is like a non-negotiable for you when you're looking at buying airplanes going into pre-buys? Or maybe some tactics.
Actually,
when you're buying airplanes,
everything is negotiable going into a pre-buy, and I've seen some of the strangest deals.
Yeah.
And I've been part of some of the fastest. Like, wow, everything just went right.
Well, presumably what airplane just came out of a big 24, 48 month, right? Those are fast deals.
I'm not conservative with airplanes. Maybe that's because I came from the factory.
Yeah.
Maybe because I am a mechanical.
That's how you find good deals in the airplane marketplace, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, the G200 I was talking about. It was a unique purchase.
Yeah.
It was sitting. It needed to go. Overdue maintenance.
Yeah.
Everything about this is all bad.
That's like those deals people are right. That's a project. No one wants. A lot of people that are maybe wealthy that are buying an airplane, they don't want a project airplane, right?
And I went to the destination. I looked at the records. They were in good shape.
Yeah.
It was a former NetJet G200. So pedigree.
Yeah.
Pedigree is the first thing. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
When I walk into the hangar and I see those aluminum pans
Yeah.
underneath everything,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, they said,
this airplane's got some issues.
if there's leakage or something like that. When I was in the military, they said, if it's not a Chinook, if it's not dripping, don't get on it. That means that it's out of hydraulics.
Yeah.
So those are just
It's not dripping.
So those are just some of the things.
Yeah.
The condition of the airplane when you first see it. None of these things are bad, but they're all things that I'll put at the forefront.
Yeah.
And then if it's got records that are just like a stack with a rubber band around it, you go, oh.
Yeah.
So
that could cause some bigger issues down the road.
Oh, it's not even that. It's just the care for. Look, you're a charter broker. At the end of the day, you're a charter broker.
Yep.
If you're working with an operator that has to keep resending you the same simple documents, there's going to come a time, no matter how low their bid was, there's going to be a time where you go, something's not right.
Communication as a charter broker, that's really one of the biggest pieces of value you can add. The idea is that you can communicate. You can, one, maybe source airplanes better than the client or their direct, operator. But the second one is being able to proactively communicate. And that's really, if you're not proactively communicating, and if an operator can't keep up with your communication, you're consistently chasing them.
Right.
Where's the updated, where's the updated details? Where's the weather? If you're consistently chasing that operator, that operator isn't maintaining a good communication with their ops team, with their pilots. On the back end, they're just, if they're consistently catching up instead of being proactively communicators, that, hey, this is an operator that, is probably lower cost for a reason, because that's the only way they can win trips.
Well, I mean, even to this day, I'm still in touch with pilots from 12, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't work on their airplanes.
Yeah.
Facebook, LinkedIn, we're still,
Yep.
thumbs up stuff.
Yep.
But they'll call me up and go, hey, our airplane was in maintenance and, boss had to take a trip and they canceled because of X. Is that possible? Mm-hmm. And so to this day,
the charter.
So the charter broker
Yeah.
that was responsible to the flyer,
Yep.
and then the operator gives them this,
Yeah.
oh, well, this happened.
Yeah.
The Ishkabibble valve did this, and we couldn't get that, and, parts demand.
Yeah.
And they'll use all the key terms, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. And then you track the airplane, it's on
And
another flight.
then they find out that the airplane is sitting in Ohio, but it was supposed to be in Teterboro to be in a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning out of HBN.
It's incredible how much bullshit that people can spew, and I've even gotten to a point where if I'm not getting answers, my spidey senses start to go off, right? Even on the front end, right? When I book an airplane, say it needs owner approval, great. Like I have a whole nother thought about airplane owner approval, but
Same with your catering.
yeah, fucking catering. So airplane owner approval, like I think the management company should be able to understand what the airplane owner's requirements, what he wants, and what of the charter flights that he or she wants to execute on their airplane. And if you're in good communication with an airplane owner and it's within, a month or less, you theoretically should have the airplane owner schedule. You should be able to book that airplane knowing that this airplane is going to get accepted. Owner approval should be kind of moved out of the way. But if I book an airplane and I'm not getting the answers that I need and it's slow, I immediately know, hey, there's an issue here. Either the owner's got a potential trip he hasn't told anyone about, or they might not have a pilot, or I immediately know if I'm not getting those answers. Really, within 24 hours, I know start to get some red flags. And that's when you kind of build that plan B scenario. But, that communication, again, is like the key part of this process. You should be able to communicate proactively, get in front of any questions, weather, maintenance, hey, this airplane is coming from another flight. Oh, it's flown every single day for the last 8 days. Maybe they're without a break. Yeah, maybe that could cause some issues. Those communication things, and it comes back to the care, and almost kind of back to what you were saying with, when you're looking at airplanes. How are those books looking? What's the hangar looking like?
Consistency.
Yeah, that care.
Literally, I'm looking for, you can see consistency.
Yeah.
When you come out of a maintenance event and you see big greasy prints by the latches on the engine cowls, I go grab a ladder and I clean that off.
Yeah.
I've been a foreman. I've been a maintenance manager. I've been an avionics manager. I've been a DOM, VP of maintenance, and a chief maintenance officer. I will go grab a ladder and I will wipe it down.
Yeah.
And that is what we started talking about in the very beginning. It's about an ethic.
Yeah.
And then I would go and grab the mechanic and go,
yeah,
come on, man.
Yeah.
That's the simple stuff.
It's the simple things. Yeah.
When I was living in Belgium, I was working for Gulfstream, and it was the special missions. So I was working for the commander of NATO and the SACURA.
Yep.
It was for NATO. He was the commander of all U.S. forces, and we were contracted with the government and Gulfstream. The way it all worked, we had to go and clean the aircraft every 90 days.
Okay.
We couldn't do it in where we were at in Belgium. So we would,
Yep.
in the summer, we would go south.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the winter, we'd kind of go south.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but we would go to different places that were able to clean the airplane. And
They get like a G150 for you to fly around in, or they stick it commercially?
no, we would get on the aircraft
Okay,
and we would
great.
go to another
Yep.
air base
Yep.
and clean it up. And we would do the bright work.
Yep.
We would do everything. And that between those events for the cleaning to get it really done, we would do a show side cleaning.
Yep.
And I would run underneath the gear on the right hand inboard side and make sure that was clean.
Yep. Yeah.
Because when the boss is walking up the stairs
Yep.
and he looks around at something, it's clean from all sides.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a great mechanic. I'm never going to say that. I can get through it. But I'm able to get it all done. But I look at it having a vision of the end result.
Yep.
And the end result is the dude walking up the stairs. And these charter airplanes, scratches on the windows and the Beijing tears,
Paint's peeling.
paint's peeling. These are all things that are important.
Yep.
And when you go into a pre-buy, comes out of a maintenance event and all of the screw heads are showing. There's nothing airworthy about that. And they can still show.
Yeah.
But why are they showing?
Yeah.
It's more, I'm looking for the consistency of the pedigree.
Yep.
And you can literally tell when there's a stack of papers sitting on a shelf for the last year and a half that haven't made it into the logbooks. The airplane also looks like that stack of papers.
That kind of trickles down to everything they've done with this airplane. So how are you finding the gems? Because I feel like you've found probably a lot of those gems in the used airplane space. Like, then don't give away all your tricks. But how are you finding those gems of like, hey, this airplane maybe needs some work, or it's too big of a project, but I know I can tackle it?
Well, I mean, I've called up owners that know that they want to sell their airplane because every airplane's for sale 6 months after they buy it.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. There's a price for every airplane, right?
If not even before.
Yeah.
And I'll call them up and go, man, I loved managing your airplane. Are you still looking to sell it? Sometimes they're like, let's do this.
Yeah.
So I've gone back to people I know, also good operators.
Yep.
If you have a good operator, that means you have a good maintenance. Look, the people dispatching the airplanes and the people maintaining the airplanes. I'm not taking anything away from salespeople or anything like that.
You can.
Don't.
You can.
I
It's
get
okay.
it. And it's kind of interesting because I love silos. I belong in a silo. You belong in a silo. She dispatches the airplane. She belongs in a silo. Because I don't know what she does. You don't know what she does. And I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I just need her to tell me airplane's green and good, right?
That's exactly right.
I can sell it.
So if you work in silos and the leadership on top of those silos, that also goes back to the pedigree of the aircraft. Because it's a pedigree, not so much pedigree, but the culture of the operation. So if all three silos are kind of in tune, they'll never be in tune.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But if all three of those silos can communicate effectively, and I know that about the operator, I call that a gem.
Yep. It's a good airplane. It's valued.
When we went to go, we bought all those G4s that came off the NetJets certificate, went on to EJM certificate, and the maintenance manager there, I still stay in touch with her, even just meeting her for
Well, there's so many companies that have been built off of ex-NetJet airplanes, right? The XLSs, a lot of these floating
Falcons.
Citation 10s.
Yep. So when I met her, I was like, man, you're just cool people.
Yep.
And I liked her vibe, and I liked that she was very strong to say no. And you could see it in the records. Yeah. So I'd buy 100 airplanes from her.
Yep.
Because her and I align.
Yeah.
And
some people stay away from NetJet airplanes. They see the hours
You
on
know?
it, right? They see the age, they see the hours, and they say, oh, well, this airplane's got, 10,000 hours
When was
where
the last
everyone
time
else.
you flew on a Delta 757, right?
Yeah.
Is it maybe 40,000 hours?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Maybe it's even got 30,000 cycles.
Yeah. It's true.
So,
Same thing. Yeah. And that's what those NetJet airplanes.
that goes back to don't
do
buy,
people
don't buy
struggle?
before 99.
I know. That's true. But do people struggle? You think some people struggle taking airplanes on that are such high utilization and then.
Yes.
And NetJets has its own maintenance structure, right?
They have their own maintenance program.
Yeah, they have their own maintenance program. So taking, do some people struggle with taking a NetJet airplane and moving it to maybe a more, I don't want to call it traditional, but
It is traditional.
yeah, a more traditional maintenance program?
Well, look at the G200s.
Mm-hmm.
NetJets actually had a service bulletin written for them
Mm-hmm.
for the engines.
Yeah.
And they would have to come off of that before they got sold.
Yep.
To include, and this is important, the data plate on the engine
Mm-hmm.
had to be removed from the NetJet
Yep.
program
Yeah.
and the low utilization data plate put on.
Yeah.
So that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not conservative about airplanes because I know how they're built.
Yep.
You have to do a lot of thinking to fuck up an airplane.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
Or you just have to be a bad person.
Yeah. It's just a numbers game, right? Here's how many numbers, cycles, landings, takeoffs. Adam, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your invite. It was fantastic.
You got it. Thank you again for tuning into the Iron Bird Podcast. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. If you want to get in touch with Adam, I'm going to leave all of his information on the show notes. You can always contact us at fly@flyironbird.com. Thank you again, and this is the Iron Bird Podcast.